Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Don Peterson, co-founder and CEO of BigIris and executive director of the DICOMdb.org. What I'm here to tell you about today is a business that we believe has the potential to change the way medical imaging services are delivered and how Google's gigabit broadband enables this potential. In September of 2007, I took a job as COO at one of the larger mobile medical imaging companies in the country. The company was owned by cardiologists who read echocardiograms, the ultrasounds of your heart and blood vessels. This was my first job in healthcare after having spent 20 years working in technology. First 10 years with Advanced Micro Devices in Silicon Valley and 10 years as CEO of a graphics workstation company that I founded in 1990 when I moved from California to Kansas City. I was hired by this company to help it grow, and my plan was to roll up the many smaller players in this fragmented market. But what I found was that the company didn't have the resources for this. In fact, it needed to cut expenses and people just to keep itself alive. What was happening in the industry astounded me. Reimbursements for diagnostic imaging were declining at the rate of 15 to 20% per year. Health insurances were requiring pre-approval before we could do a procedure, and in many cases were denying us the ability to do them in a primary care or family physician's office, where the cost to perform these exams is much lower than in a hospital. So, although cardiovascular disease kills more than 1 million Americans each year, the imaging to screen for the disease was being decimated. You all have stories of friends or loved ones, or maybe yourself, whose lives have been affected by heart disease. The fact is that 1 in 4 of us in this room here today have cardiovascular disease. And statistically speaking, 2 of us in this room will have a heart attack or stroke this year, and only 1 of us will survive. My own father died this way when he was just 70 years old. I thought, this is really insane. Here we have a disease that kills more Americans than all forms of cancer combined, yet insurances were using every means available to them to reduce our ability to detect the disease early enough to do something about it. And the doctors providing these imaging services were doing nothing to fight back against the declining reimbursements and the constraints that were being placed on them. We couldn't cut expenses fast enough, but simply cutting back was like giving up, rolling over. So a year after entering the industry, I wrote the business plan for the DICOM database. What I felt was important was to aggregate as many imaging studies as possible and mine the data within them to expose not just the vastness of a disease, but what trends and predictions we can make about how the imaging supports lower death rates and better outcomes for patients. So that's what DICOMdb is, a monster repository of medical imaging content data. A nonprofit, publicly searchable database where anyone can analyze the data and draw what conclusions they can from it. So what's BigIris? Well, BigIris is the for-profit company that mines actionable information from the DICOMdb and the facilities data, like a hospital, to show them how they're doing, what procedures their doctors are performing, why and what the outcomes are for the patients they image within their facility, and how that compares to the rest of the world. And here's why this is so valuable as a business. It's because administrators of imaging departments don't know why doctors order what they do or how to manage what doctors order. They just don't know what waste and inefficiencies exist in their businesses. But what they do know is this, that without hard facts, supported by verifiable data, doctors will not change the way they act, nor would insurances change the way they think. Without actionable information, doctors won't change a thing. Anecdotal evidence is simply not enough, and analytic software tools don't provide knowledge, they actually require knowledge to use. Our medical advisors have told us, look, we don't want to spend another nickel on IT, so don't sell us tools to build a doghouse, just sell us the doghouse. Sell us actionable conclusions about what we need to do to be better. Given the declining reimbursements and other constraints, cutting people, equipment, and even doctors to keep imaging businesses afloat, what that means is reduced access to these important diagnostic imaging exams for people like you and me. Now, you can understand why we need to cut healthcare costs. Healthcare spending in the US is literally off the charts. we spend almost 3 times more than what other countries spend per patient per year on healthcare, and yet we have a life expectancy lower than the world's average. Our system is frighteningly broken, but curbing essential services will only reduce the spending. It will not improve life expectancy. In fact, it will do just the opposite. This is exactly why the world needs DICOMdb and BigIris. By collecting our vast store of medical imaging data into one searchable, secure repository, we'll create a system that reveals information that can become knowledge. Knowledge that can ultimately lead to reduced costs and to superior, more effective, and affordable care for everyone. We believe BigIris can act as an objective decision support system for healthcare providers worldwide. With what we can tell them about experiences and outcomes for thousands of like cases, we hope to see mid-level providers in emerging countries using BigIris as a guidepost. They won't have physicians on every corner to provide expert advice. Instead, emerging countries will have BigIris, supporting and guiding their conclusions about the patients they see. In addition, the information and analytic structure of BigIris will long-term directly extend into genomics, the science of identifying genetic markers in certain individuals that can predict disease. Technically, we'll have to accomplish some important things. We have a software tool that reads and parses the DICOM files, removing anything it deems to look like or represent protected health information. We'll be able to say with solid statistical certainty and according to federal guidelines that nothing in our database can be used to re-identify any given study. We then convert the original file format, the DICOM, into a lower resolution format that websites and browsers can easily display. And we'll deploy on the cloud for its infinitely scalable storage and computing capabilities. Given the size and sheer number of studies we expect to have, Google's broadband is essential for us to get these files to the cloud. At gigabit speeds, sending terabytes of data to the cloud will take hours rather than days or weeks. Finally, BigIris is more than just image data. It will be designed like a social network. Think Facebook or YouTube for medical imaging information. DICOMdb is a multi-variable search engine where different data can be searched or filtered in parallel. As an example, let's say you wanted to search on how many males age 52 who have left ventricular hypertrophy also have had a prior heart attack and are less than 5 feet 8 inches tall and weigh more than 200 pounds and live in Georgia. Using BigIris' analytic tools, you could compare this group to another group who weigh less than 200 pounds to see what is similar or different about these groups. Nowhere on the planet can you access data like this in an instant. When we launch, we expect to have some 50,000 imaging studies online that can be searched for content data and metadata. It will be the only publicly searchable medical imaging database of its kind in the world. We plan to engage with only a handful of facilities to provide analytics on a monthly subscription basis. This way we can sustain the business while we hone our skills and build out the database. So that's BigIris and the DICOMdb, a big data repository distilling data into actionable information and knowledge. Our goal? Give providers of medical imaging services the tools they need to be better, to spend less, and to be more efficient while maintaining access to these essential services for you and me. Cloud computing and Google's gigabit broadband are not just nice to haves, they enable our venture. We believe we can be sustainable with just 10 clients, sharpening our skills, refining our processes, and preparing for a future of healthcare that must be different from the one we're living with today. And finally, I'd like to thank the folks who are sponsoring this amazing event, of course Google, Think Big Partners, and everyone else. It's funny, when I moved here from California 20 years ago, I thought, if anyone here was really serious about catching the technology and entrepreneurship wave, they should probably move to the Bay Area. But today, even if I lived in the Bay Area, I'd be moving to Kansas City to start BigIris. Lucky for me, I already live here. Congratulations to my fellow finalists and to you, Kansas City, and to everyone who has worked so hard to bring us to this day. Thank you.